I figured it's been a long while since you guys have seen anything from Intro to Anatomy Unit 1, as in like January. So I figured I'd start at the beginning of the packet and go through it. I'm not saying this is on the final, this isn't on the final, but what I think is important enough to talk about is really likely on the final. The big review sheet gives you a much better idea of the questions I'll ask, rather than me talking through this. I just want you to get a chance, and you can play this as many times as you want. As you go through the review sheet, you may find some answers in there, and at the very least, it goes over the material. You have these notes. I posted them. I will repost them if I need to, so that you guys have your full first packet. It's good. So this class is anatomy and physiology. We usually just call it anatomy, but those two concepts work together. Anatomy is where something is found, and physiology is what it does. So form follows function. The structures of your body are designed to match up with location and what they do. So it wouldn't do me any good if my big toe were on my hand and my thumb were on my foot. The big toe is used for balance, the thumb for gripping. Where they are and what they do match up well. Examples: anatomy of the heart is in the central chest, slightly tipped. Physiology, it pumps blood. You don't really need to know a lot of Latin for the exam. It's in there, and we talked about why these have these names, that even though anatomy means without cutting, it's because it used to be done that way. It is not no mo. As far as homologous structures go, that was not a major idea. It's kind of cool to look at how similar the structures are for forelimbs in critters, even though the functions are very different. Characteristics of life, what we all have in common. Read through these. A lot of them are really logical, like movement and responsiveness, reply to a stimulus. Remember, we talked about growth. We talked about it not being a drastic change in shape, because that's the first time I mentioned how big babies' heads are compared to the rest of the body. And that if you look at the shape of a baby anything versus the adult anything, you're going to see a difference in shape there, but not drastic in most cases, except for things like caterpillars and tadpoles that have different stages to their life cycle. Reproduction is not just making new organisms, it's also making new cells. Know your parts of respiration. If you pick the respiratory system as one of the systems you're working with after the final, you're going to look at respiratory gas exchange. If you do cardiovascular, you're going to look at the importance of pulmonary or lung circulation. 3 parts to respiration. Get your oxygen, remove your carbon dioxide, and release energy. Be careful, because metabolism also has 3 parts. So just keep your eye on that. Which one? If we're doing oxygen, carbon dioxide, I'm looking for respiration. Digestion's real nice, breaks down my food. If you're doing digestive system, we're going to go into that. And absorption. Absorption's really big in the intestines. It's where stuff passes through membranes and goes into your body, which is super important in usage of the food you've taken in. Circulation usually talks about blood, but remember, lymph is also a body fluid. It's the clearish yellow stuff, carries your immune cells. Assimilation brings things in and changes them into what you need, and excretion is big. It's removal of waste. Again, back to the different systems, we'll look at that. Metabolism. When we look at the 3 parts of respiration, you're looking at gases. Metabolism deals with energy. Getting your nutrients, breaking them down, and getting rid of the leftovers. The sum of the biochemical reactions, aka all the chemical reactions that are going on in your body, make up metabolism, and that's what they do. So if you have a fast metabolism, that happens rapidly, and if you say your metabolism is slow, it's happening more slowly. Requirements of organisms. Know that when I talk requirements of organisms, I'm looking for outside the body. Water's your most abundant chemical. You might think like glucose or salt, something like that would be a chemical, but water is it, H2O. You need it for a lot of different things. I think we went through the oxygen requirements of 1/5 of the air we breathe is oxygen. We did a lot with that. Know that not only, like, these are it. Other things you might think are important are not technically required for life. And if your body makes it yourself, or if your body does it yourself, it's not a factor required for life. Homeostasis, staying the same, keeping the inside in and the outside out, keeping your body boundaries good, and maintaining a constant set of internal conditions. Temperature at 98.6, 37 Celsius, and 310 Kelvin, keeping my promise. Heartbeat, we like 60 to 100 beats per minute. We like things to be the same. We like a fluid balance. We like to keep things the way they should be. And it's a negative feedback loop that does this. Again, we talked about negative feedback sounding bad. Negative feedback just returns a value back toward its set point. So if you're cold, your body shivers to raise your temperature back to the set point. If you're hot, your body sweats, brings back to the set point. It lowers your temperature. So know what negative feedback is. It's important. And that temperature regulation example is great. You've got receptors in your brain and skin that are like, whoa, we can't do this. So they fix it. Bring it back to where it should be. There's an example. Like I said before, I tried to draw that on the board, and it was awful. So I'm really glad I have Sweaty Shivery Man there. And the notes at the bottom talking about examples of each. Remember, the effector is the structure that makes the change happen, not what happens to the structure. So an effector is a sweat gland, not actually sweat. Organization within an organism, just look over it and know it in order. Know what a macromolecule is. Macro means big, so really it's a big molecule. And those are your nutrients, proteins, carbs, fats. Nucleic acids fit in there too, but we don't like DNA. We're not going to talk about DNA. It's bad enough we have to talk about the nucleus and the mitochondria. So your atoms, your smallest part. I got a lot of you on the quiz on this one, on atoms make up molecules versus molecules make up atoms. Watch out for that one. We talked about cell as unit of structure and function when we came back to the muscle cell or muscle fiber in this past unit. Definitely know tissue, organ, and organ system build up from the cell. Organ systems are going to come up important in the next few weeks as you look at those packets. Except for you seniors. Organism is a living thing. Very good. We went through these organ systems. There's a big section of matching with organs and organ systems that we did here. We did a lot with this. So go over these, look through, and be able to match up the biggest ideas and the close to biggest ideas, if that makes sense. I would not ask you about little picky things, especially things we haven't talked about. But for digestive, what did we talk about? We talked about the stomach. We talked about the intestines mostly. Cardio, heart and blood vessels, big ideas. There are big ideas, and then there are close to big ideas. For respiratory, for example, my lungs are a big idea. Like, that's the thing, my lungs. But my trachea was important too, that brought in the air. The bronchi, the windpipes. So those are big ideas without being the most. What's my big idea? Nervous, maybe my brain. Slightly smaller idea, spinal cord, still good. So review those, and like I said, I'm not going to get picky. I'm not going to be like bile duct. And see if you guess that bile was gallbladder. Gallbladder kind of helps the liver. Liver is kind of digest. That's a long shot. I would go with the big ideas. Again, kidney, good. Bladder, good. Do I really care about the ureter and urethra compared to the kidney? Not so much. Organ systems, again, we went through the functions of these systems, and I'm more concerned about what organs are in them rather than the functions. Because, if I say, what's the function of the digestive system? You're like, digest. Respiratory, breathe. You've got a good idea of the functions already. Read through those. Again, focus on the organs and the biggest ones. I'll give you more details on what's on the final, and you can always go back to this and check it out. Going through this, I'm scrolling. That's why this is taking a while. Reproductive system. I believe that I have a question about uterus on at least the copy of the final I used in class, which I pretty much copied, except changed the format for now. The uterus is not the urinary system because both of them start with U. It is not. That's like somebody telling me that his gluteal region was on his head, and I promptly called him a butthead. Body cavities. Dorsal versus ventral is your big idea here. Dorsal contains organs of the nervous system, brain, and spinal cord. And if you think about it, brain and spinal cord would be visible on your back, which is dorsal. Dorsal cavities contain organs of the nervous system. Ventral cavities have squishy guts. I have two main ventral cavities, thoracic and abdominopelvic. Thoracic splits to pleural with the lungs, plural means side, and pericardial in the middle. So thoracic, my thorax, which is above the diaphragm. Pleural on the sides, pericardial in the center, abdominopelvic splits easily, abdominal, belly, and then pelvic, which is further down. The small cavities of your face are worth looking over, but not as important for us right now as the dorsal versus ventral cavities. Dividing the body 3 planes: sagittal, right and left, coronal or frontal, front and back, and transverse, top and bottom. Remember, mid is needed if you're talking exactly halves. Anatomical position, there's Yoshi, facing forward. Toes forward, chin up, arms at sides. The one that's easy to forget, it's palms forward or thumbs out. Palms forward or thumbs out, because that puts the ulna and the radius in the correct position in your lower arm. Look over your descriptive directional terms and pairing. Most of you were getting pretty good at these. Proximal and distal was a little sketchy. Anterior versus posterior. Superior versus inferior. On my arm, if I'm looking at an arm, distal versus proximal. Farther away from the point of attachment versus closest. Medial versus lateral. Deeps within, superficial on the surface. I would ask you pairs like that. And there's doggy and underpants monkey man. Practices have some examples on them, but not so much. You should know axial and appendicular easily right now. I don't think I said much about the quadrants all year. We did do 9 regions of the abdomen quite a few times, and it might help you to be able to pick these out. I always start with umbilical, my central abdomen, find my belly button, and then I go, okay, epi is above, hypo is below. So I go to umbilical, and then I go epigastric, hypogastric, and fill in the middle, just like tic-tac-toe. Then I go, okay, chondro is ribs, hypochondriac, left and right. And remember, as you look at the page, your right is their left. You need to hold the patient or the diagram against yourself to find the correct left and right. So I do hypochondriac, I do lumbar, this is opposite my lower back, and then I do ilium is hip. Hypochondriac, lumbar, iliac, left and right. Going down there. Those are my paired lateral regions. As far as body regions go, definitely a section on these would be good. Ones we've reused. So I would take the time to review these body regions' most specific terms. I know Quizlet has millions of these. So definitely go through those. There's no diagrams with pictures, but it's matching. Like chin is mental, sternal is central chest, pectoral is lateral chest. Another done review. If you want to practice where the regions go, I included gender-neutral nude person for you to label, but just like I said in class, don't forget, you see the chin and the kneecaps on the anterior surface and the heels and the bum on the posterior surface. So if you want to relabel that, go for it. Flashcards, you can make them. You got the Quizlet. I know that's big for these. So that's Unit 1. More information to follow on what's on the final, but that was a big idea overview of it. And I hope it helps. I will be doing one of these for the axial skeleton where I'm not playing with my dog. I'll do a full review of the axial skeleton section too, since that also was a long time ago. I feel like appendicular was decently recent. I might throw all those in on one. I don't know, you're going to get a skeletal review of some kind too. So, hope this helps. Have a great day.